Enhancing the stereo of your tracks might be quite desirable since you are leaving space for things if some of them are mono and some of them are spread out, left and right, or just really stereo wide instead of being really all in the middle. So what we can do in that effect, we can use several techniques that can help us do that. First of all, the first one would be just panning things left and right, as I did for this shaker and tambourine. So one is all the way to the left, one is all the way to the right, just like this. So you can see two different things on two different sides, and that sounds really stereo as they are playing the same pattern. They are playing the same vibe. But what else can we do if we already have something that is a stereo signal, or a mono signal already, and we want to spread it out? Well, the first thing I can show you, and that really doesn't pan off good when you mono down your signal into mono. As I've told you, you should always check your, mixes, how they sound in mono. That doesn't really pan out, but it really sounds wonderful. It really sounds really wide, really spread out. So let's try that on this loop. Yeah, and I do realize the volume of the loop is really low. So while we are doing this, I'm going to raise that volume up. Okay, so how could we do that? Well, let's take into consideration just using the simplest of plugins already included in Ableton. We can add Haas effect. Haas effect would be, to put it simply, just delaying one of the channels, so left or right, delaying it in time, but in really short periods of time, let's say up to 20 milliseconds. So what I would, perfectly want to do, ideally, is to put on a simple delay just like this, turn off the syncs, okay, and use it all wet, of course. So one of the channels is going to be delayed by 1 millisecond, as that is the smallest delay time that I can provide right now, and the other one is going to be delayed by 20 milliseconds, let's say 17. It's okay. So let's listen to that without this delay and with it. You should hear a really considerable difference when it comes to stereo image. So you can hear that this loop already does have some stereo on it, but still, when applying this, it really makes all the difference. Everything just jumps out. So even with less delay time, you can see that every time I enable it, the loop actually jumps to left and right, and almost like nothing has been left in the middle of the stereo field. Now this can fool you, since when we mono that out, it could sound bad. It could be introducing a lot, and I do mean a lot, of phasing, once we do something like that. So let me try a plugin that's going to mono out this entire song, something like this mix checker. And I can even place that on the master, but I'm going to use it right here. I'm just going to mono out everything. So you can see what is the downside of this. When we have something really spread out with the Haas effect, just like this, so an identical signal that we take and just delay one of the sides, so one of the left or the right, just like this, small amount of time, and then we mono that in, the transients are somehow gone from this loop. As you can hear it, like when it's stereo, it sounds cool. Still have all the transients, all the hits, but once I mono that out, you see all the phasing just made this sound really, phased. And the signal just lost its properties, it lost its transients, the hits of all the hits in that loop. And that's something I really don't want, because this is a drum loop, so I don't want to do that. And you can see that when I disable the stereo effect, even going mono, the loop sounds cool. Look. You see, we still gain that we still have that transient even when it's mono if we don't do anything crazy, just like this. Now what I could do is keep it mono, just like this, monoed out, so that I hear what the result is going to be when it's monoed out, and then move this delay time to see what's going to give me the best result. Okay, this is somewhat acceptable. So now I have hopefully the best of both worlds. I did expand this loop to be way more stereo than it was, plus it doesn't really sound all that bad when it's mono. But the only way to check that is to actually mono out your signal and check what it sounds like when you do something like this. Now another technique we can do is to avoid this 1 millisecond delay even on the left channel, because we cannot keep that as original with a 0 millisecond delay. We can divide this signal by grouping this effect right here, and then I'm going to create another clean chain. Okay, and I'm going to use the utility on both of those, just like this, and utility right here, it's like this. This one is going to only be right, this one is only going to be left, and the one that is only left, I'm going to put it all the way left or the way right, and I'm going to use this, yeah, just the way it is. So the left one is going to be this, the delay time, and it doesn't really matter anymore because this one is playing the original right signal without, you know, I can even go right like this and left like this. So this is going to be playing the left, which is going to be delayed by 10 milliseconds. I can even connect these, link them so that the delay on the left and the right is the same, because it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to be letting out one of the sides out of here and one of the sides out of there. Play only that loop. Now it's 2 times louder. I have to do -6 on both of these because now I have 2 of the signals. You see how that delay actually widens it out, and we can do even more of that. Becomes really wide in the stereo image. So this Haas effect, where you actually delay one of the channels, left or the right, by a certain amount of milliseconds, and I would suggest up to 20, since you see that over 20 our brain can actually discern that it's 2 signals. It doesn't really sound stereo, it just sounds late. So we don't want that. We just want the illusion of that stereo width, and you can achieve that by adding that delay up to, as I said, up to 20 milliseconds. Now, going to other techniques, what we can also do is use an EQ right here and use this mid-side technique so that we can apply separate filtering to the mid, everything that is mono, that is identical on the left and right channel, and the side, everything that is not identical on the left and right channel. So I could pull out the side, the stereo signal at, let's say, 2K, so I'm adding more stereo, everything that is stereo in the signal, I'm boosting that up in this frequency range only. So this gives us more flexibility as opposed to, let's say, using the utility. And on the utility we have this width right here, which is actually the balance between the mid and the side signals. So at 0 we're only hearing the mids. Listen to this. So you see really mono, and at 200 we are only listening to the side. So there is nothing mono about it. Now, when we do that, we apply that to the entire signal. And of course, you could do that with a certain amount, you know, of control. So just adding a tiny bit more width. Which widens it out, you know, actually boosting that side signal and voluming down and attenuating a bit on that mid signal. But we can do this selectively using an EQ, just like this, and just boosting a part of the frequencies in that side part of the signal. So only the stereo, what is not the same on the left and right, I can boost that up in, let's say, this part of the frequency range. As you see, that gives you a nice result. Of course, I've done something really extreme right here, so 12 dBs up, but you can do that in moderation on any part of the frequency spectrum and just add a bit of stereo to a certain portion of frequencies. And you're not just adding stereo, you're just actually enhancing, boosting the stereo signal that already appears, that is already in your signal. You're just boosting that up so you get more of it. And the third thing that we can do, and I'm going to leave this with the EQ, and I showed this to you already. So we can use some of these filters right here. We have this stereo effect. See this one and another one, which is a pseudo stereo effect. And you've seen that already, but we can use that as this makes this EQ work in the left-right mode, meaning that we are controlling the left and the right separately with separate EQs, separate filters. So what's been done right here is that wherever the left side is boosted, the right side is attenuated, and vice versa, giving us more stereo, giving us a difference between the left and the right channels, and that means stereo. As you can see, that can also sound great. We don't have to do it that much. We can always pull down on the scale. Or we can inverse the scale, meaning that wherever left was boosted and right attenuated, now it's opposite. It does spread it out. We have this gain right here missing. But you can definitely hear the difference. Now, one good thing about this stereo effect is when you mono it out, when it's on a monoed out system, everything seems normal, because wherever you had less frequencies on the left, you have more on the high. So once it levels out, it's just going to be flat. And you will get no phasing issues, as we did with the Haas effect, with that delay introducing on the left or the right. So this is the safest way to go. In a sense, you are sure that you will not be producing any phasing issues once your signal is monoed out. And if that happens, but it might just as well happen depending on where it's reproduced, and you cannot know that. You can never assume that it's always going to be reproduced on stereo systems, whether it's speakers, headphones, somebody's earbuds. You can always assume that if you do something that's going to introduce phasing, you better make sure that you hear that, what it sounds like in mono. So you mono it out and you hear what it sounds like to be sure what your song is going to be like on a monoed out system. But as I said, this actual technique is not going to produce any kinds of those artifacts.